It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today's guest is CEO Buzz Bradley. A natural at sales, marketing, and helping clients maximize product and service offerings, Buzz has an extensive career helping grow and lead middle market manufacturing organizations. Buzz's strong customer service focus, eye for details, and innovative entrepreneurial spirit have allowed him to adroitly manage production, people, and profits. He has been the CEO of Zpacks Corporation, an industry-leading manufacturer of ultralight backpacking equipment, since 2015. Buzz Bradley, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, we like to kind of start a little bit with the background and would love to hear a little bit about your early years, where you grew up and what part of the country you came from. Tell us a little bit about your family life.
Sure. So I grew up in the Bay Area of California. I actually grew up on a large piece of agricultural land that my family had worked for over many years. It was a little bit outside the city limits. And then,
I was going to say, there's not too many of those in the city anymore.
Well, there's not. But we grew up just about 30 miles outside of San Francisco. And it's a big city, but there's still lots of open land there. And we just happened to have the opportunity to live in one.
Was it up in the Marin area, or what direction were those 30 miles?
It's in the Tri-Valley area, so it's the East Bay.
The other side, yeah.
The other side, yep.
Yeah, terrific. And brothers and sisters?
I have two brothers, and my parents are still married and happily living life.
Older brothers, younger brothers?
I'm the oldest of.
You're the oldest. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. And mom and dad, professionals. Mom worked from the home, raised the kids. So what was the structure growing up?
So my dad was an entrepreneur. He didn't like working for others. He liked working for himself. And my mom was a nurse, and my two brothers are currently firefighters, paramedics in the Bay Area still. So
you got the entrepreneurial blood that came into your veins.
I did.
What kind of businesses did your dad get started and run, or is currently still running?
Well, he had lots of jobs growing up, but the two main successful ones that he had, one was in construction, renovation. And then his biggest success was actually in electronics. He was serving the telecommunications industry through coaxial jumper cables.
Got it. Was he an engineer by training?
No, he was definitely not that. He was just a go-getter.
Yeah, cool. And what kind of influence did they have on your growing up? Obviously, having an entrepreneurial dad, did you get involved in any of his enterprises at all?
I did. Yeah, I actually got started really early. He likes to tell people he took me to work when I was 2 weeks old.
That's a common trait, I must tell you. And a lot of the CEOs we speak to, they get involved quite early, particularly when dads are, the entrepreneurial type.
Yeah, so I definitely got my creativity from him, and I got my patience from my mom.
Cool. And any other early influencers in your life? An uncle or maybe a coach, someone that might have had some influence on you in those early days?
Well, my dad was also my coach in many of the sports, so he was very active. But I like to have a lot of mentors throughout. So I always like to, pick out 2 or 3 people, and this has been early on. I'll identify something I like or something maybe I don't like about a person, and then I'll try to learn as much as I can from them to either learn what to do or what not to do.
Mentors are really important. What was the first mentor that you had, and what capacity and what age?
Of course, as I've mentioned a couple times, my dad and I spent a lot of time together, so I learned a lot from him. He actually had a successful exit in his business. He sold to another family company, and the new ownership really took me under their wing. So I had
That's nice.
four really great people that were very successful, totally different, but they were able to teach, lead, and guide, and do all those things that you would really hope for. So I had a unique experience in that regard.
What age were you at that stage?
So I started working. One of those things. Your dad has a company growing up. You've worked in it since you were in middle school, and graduate high school, and he says, "Hey, guess what? I sold it." So I got a job as an inside sales rep. It was basically a bunch of inactive and dead accounts, and I started there. And as
So this
I
was
worked
this was
through it,
after high school or after college?
this was right after high school. So I started working right after high school, and then as I was working, went back to I got my 2 year degree, and then I went back and got my bachelor's degree after that.
Well, back to your school days, kind of early school, middle school, high school. Were you a good student?
Not really, not until I was a good
That's a
student.
common trait too, I must add.
Yeah, yeah. I actually wasn't a good student until the last 2 years of my bachelor's degree because at that time I was a director of sales and I was on a track to be the second generation of leadership for that the parent company, and so they wanted me to increase my education. And what was great about it was I would go to school at night, and so I would go to school on Tuesday nights, and then on Wednesday morning I was always a little bit smarter. So so once I could actually apply it to real life and I was interested in what I was learning because it was applicable to me, that's when it became interesting. But when it was just a book, I didn't really care that much.
Right, right. Back to kind of middle school and high school, you mentioned sports. What sports did you play?
Primarily baseball. I also played basketball and soccer.
And any ambitions to do that at the collegiate level, or did you always kind of feel that high school was, enough for you in terms of those sports?
I was really into baseball quite heavily, and then as I got into my senior year, perspective changed a little bit and got interested in other things and just kind of moved on to the next chapter.
What about entrepreneurial things? It sounds like you were involved with your dad's, obviously, from your 2 weeks first showing up at the job site. But were there things that you did? Paper routes, selling stuff at Christmas time.
So what I like to create things. I like to solve problems. So I like to work with my hands a lot too. When I was in high school, I took wood shop, and I would say I want to make my first wood shop project ever was a roll top desk, or actually I guess it's my second one. But I designed the pattern myself. I built it myself. I made every decision in it because I just felt the excitement in developing the plan first and then executing. And that's been a trend in my career is when I first enter a new environment, I assess the situation, I develop a plan, and then I execute on that plan. And I think that's what entrepreneurs need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you actually sell some of your wares at a wood shop, or was it really making things more for yourself?
It was making things more for myself.
So no spending money or anything like that. Any vices during high school that you had to support while you were still going to school?
Not really. I like to me, there's people that make money because they like what money can do for you, and there's people that make money because they like to collect it. And I I like to make money so I can use it for things I enjoy. So more experience based than stuff. I like to go do things.
What were some of the earliest jobs then? Was it those sales position you'd mentioned earlier, or were there other jobs that were kind of W-2 wages or hourly wages during those high school years?
Oh, so during high school, I was in production, so I had the fun job of having standing on the end of a machine that would spit out product, and I had to count them and bundle them and put them into the next tray. And then I got into shipping and receiving, and I got into some kit assembly, and then office management. And then once I graduated from, or not office management, more office assistant stuff. And then once I graduated from high school, then I got my first inside sales position.
So that was a dad's company, right, during the high school years?
Yep, the people that I worked for outside of that, my uncle was an electrician, and I would help him on some jobs. My We had a person that we knew that built cabinets, so I would help with some custom cabinetry and installation. And then I also one summer I worked at Old Navy as a greeter.
Okay, got it. Was it kind of a foregone conclusion that you'd go to college? It sounds like you went straight to work right away, right? So was college a thought that came along later, or what was your thinking about that during your high school years?
I think it was really a thought that I came through later. It was I was kind of raised in a blue collar family, so it was really about you get up, you work hard, you pay for you, you pay for the things that you want. It wasn't really about go get your education and get a great job after that. It was if you want to go get an education, you work during the day and then you can go to school at night.
So that's kind of what you did, right? So you did your AA work at night while you were still working as an inside sales rep?
I did.
And then when you went back to get your BA, did you also do that part time?
I did.
And what did you study in college? What did you finally get your degree in?
Management marketing.
Got it. So kind of decided on business. It was that led, primarily kind of the fact that you were working in business at the time, or were you kind of hungry for some certain skills? Tell us a little bit about how you decided to get your business degree.
First, I was really motivated by, or encouraged really by the. There was four brothers that ran this company, and as they decided that I was going to be brought into the fold, and as that next generation, they decided that it was important for each of us, Gen 2 individuals, that we were going to increase our education and that we were going to get more scholastic skills to support our real life experience. So we kind of got taught at school, we got taught by them, and then we got taught by actually performing our own work and our own projects and learning on the fly.
Do you remember the first time you started managing people?
It was in my early 20s. I was probably 22 or 23. I went from inside sales to sales management, and then
Same
after
company.
that,
Was that the
same
same
company.
company? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep. So by the time I was, so I've had three parts to my career. So I had that first part, and it was from 18 until 30. And when I left that job at 30, I was actually the general manager of what used to be my dad's company, and then I was the vice president of sales and product management for the parent company, who had several verticals that they supported. And really, it was one of those things where I was really good at what I was doing, but I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing, and I felt like I needed to make a change.
What were some of those early leadership lessons you learned from some of those bosses and or mentors you worked with during those years?
Well, I learned that when a good opportunity comes across your desk, you should take it, and then if you don't know how to do it, figure it out. Um, it's always good to take the opportunity when it's presented to you. You can always figure out how to deliver on it later, but if you let opportunities pass you by because you're not ready, what you'll realize is that you're never really ready for any opportunity. You just got to take it and just do the best that you can. So I learned that, and that's really, what entrepreneurs do. They say, "Yeah, I can do that." Well, have you done it before? Well, no, but I can figure it out, and that's how businesses get started. Um, I also learned from one of my mentors from the other company. Was He talked a lot about it's not about how much you make, but it's about how much you keep. And and so when you're looking at something, let's say you sell something for $1. Well, by the time that dollar is sold, once all your direct costs and your overheads are paid, you're going to drop, say, 10 cents to the bottom line. But if you can take $1 expense out of operations, you keep that dollar. So you have to sell $10 to be equivalent for $1 in cost savings. Now you can never get your cost down to zero, but you should operate as lean as possible while at the same time enhancing sales. And that was where I got my successes when I took over as general manager. I was able to increase sales while reducing costs. And when you take those two things and you do them at the same time, it has a tremendous impact on your bottom line.
Oh, that's excellent. Great. So that was one of your bosses or mentors that you learned that from?
Both. He was
Yeah,
both a
both.
boss and a
Yeah,
mentor. Yep.
got it. Any bad lessons from former bosses? No names need to be mentioned, but sometimes it's the examples of others too that lead us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely did learn. One, you have to be focused and you have to be grounded. You can't get excited over things. It's a process. It doesn't matter if it's $100 deal or $1 million deal. The steps are all the same. So don't get excited about things. And I definitely work for some people that they got excited and they made emotional decisions and they didn't go through the process of, okay, this is what we do when this comes up and this is how we stay stable. So I think not getting excited about things is important. The other thing that I learned, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're people that I'm just going to do it myself, or I have to do it myself because no one else can do it better. I don't trust anyone to perform this task. And to me, it's more about I would rather build a good process with good systems because then I can go on vacation or I can, I can get sick or go to my kid's graduation or something like that. It's, I was listening to an audiobook the other day and they were talking about the difference between selling hamburgers and making a process and making systems that last.
Yes.
So I've seen both. I've seen people that were big on the process, and I've seen people um, that were I got to do this myself. And the people that got to do it themselves, they never. I shouldn't say never, but it seems stressful. It seems like there's too much burden, and as they're more successful, the more the burden and the responsibility and the kind of the smothering of time and resources happen. So I've seen people do that, and there's only so far you can grow if you're the hero.
True. True. No, so true. This is your second or third CEO's position at Zpacks.
Through the general manager position, I really had full P&L responsibility. I did report to the parent company, and then I took on some entrepreneurial jobs as well, and the same thing there. It worked well, but again, I was fulfilling someone else's dream. So we did have a couple successful startups, but the process was to find a talented operator and build a business around that person. So I was helping that person fulfill their dream. I also did some consulting for professional service providers, and again, showing them how to take their business from, say, a tax firm into a small business. And then Zpacks is where I got my first official CEO title that wasn't self-granted by being a founder of a business.
So, Buzz, how would you say your leadership style has evolved over time?
So early on, I could definitely see both sides of the equation, and sometimes I lack conviction in my decisions. So if I was in a room with two people and we were discussing what we were going to do going forward, I could see one person's perspective and I would agree with that, and then I could see another person's perspective and I agree with that. And just depending on how that conversation went, I wasn't really forming my own opinion. And what I realized is that you really have to make decisions quickly and you have to be slow to change them. And and it's okay if you love it today and you hate it tomorrow, but you should only hate it tomorrow if new information comes to you and you recognize that this isn't the right path. But I mean, you should be really, really slow to change and really have a lot of conviction in where you're headed.
It's okay to change your mind. I think that's very, very insightful. And sometimes situations do change, right? And you've got to be willing to roll with the punches.
Absolutely. And then once you've made your decision and once you really, and again, it comes to the planning, right? So once you've made a decision and you've said, yeah, this is where we're going to go, you're going to stand behind it unless something substantial changes. Then it comes down to persuasion. It comes down to the people involved, both internal and external, and how you get them to move in the direction that you want them to move. You talked a little bit about, managing others. How do you decide if it's time to micromanage someone or stay out of their sandbox, so to speak? So I definitely want to be involved in the planning process because that's the foundation. If the blueprints aren't right, you can lean your ladder against the wrong wall, and by the time you climb it, you realize that's not where you wanted to be. So you want to. I definitely am involved in the planning phase, and then I also get involved again if things start to get off track and they need to be back on. But otherwise, I like to hire the best people that are available to me, and I like to put them in the right seats to do the right job. And when you do that, if you do all those things and then micromanage, you've there's no point in doing the other things first.
Right, absolutely. Now, if I understood you correctly, Zpacks is a company that you were hired to become the CEO, correct? Or are you also a founder there?
I was hired to be the CEO
You're
of
hired,
Zpacks.
exactly. So you came into an existing culture. How old was the company when you joined as CEO back in 15?
10 years old.
Okay, so it's been around a while. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on building a company culture, particularly coming into an established business, one that's been around for 10 years, and you've been there now, what, three, going on 4 years, I guess. Talk to me a little bit about how, that plays out in your role as CEO.
Yeah, so a company culture is important, and the reason why is really a company at least should be a collection of people working towards a common goal, right? And so what happens though is that's not always the case. So you have internal struggles. Sometimes you think the enemy's on the inside when really the enemy should be on the outside. So a culture really needs to be the mission, the vision, the goals. They all need to be alive in the organization. Everyone needs to be working for the same end goals. They need to know what those end goals are, and that's not a passive exercise. That's very active, and you definitely have to be hands-on, and that needs to be important for you. And I think that's something that's important to us at Zpacks is that a lot of us are actual customers of the brand. We build things that we would use ourselves, so that's important. So we care and we're passionate about it, and then we care and we're passionate about the people and the things that we're trying to accomplish. So as time has gone on, we went from a bunch of individuals in a building to now we're starting to form a collection of people all marching towards those same goals. And that culture is very important.
Yeah. How many people in the organization today?
Just under 100.
So, Buzz, tell me what's unusual or unique about your company culture today?
So what I would say is very unique in our company culture is that we are successful and changing, and we're actively changing. We're doing this intentionally because we started off in a garage with success, but we had a garage shop mentality. And a few years back, we started to embark in this change to become an established small business. And as we do that, new problems arise and we can address new issues. So going from a bunch of individuals to one harmonious team, a collection of individuals that's working for Zpacks, is a change that's really exciting. And of course, there's some bumps in the road. We're really doing something new. And to take a risk on changing a successful playbook isn't something that a lot of people do, but we're doing that. The other thing that makes us unique is we are our own customers. That's number one priority for us. So we build things that we use ourselves. We're 100% authentic in the products that we make and the decisions and the debates that go into making those products. I mean, even right now, 3 key members of our team are in Utah hiking the Uintas Mountain Range. They're using our existing gear. They're testing new gear. We're living the story that we tell. We aren't just in a room, hey, send me a bunch of stuff. We'll look at it. Yeah, that looks cool. We'll put it out and see how it goes. No, we develop it hands-on. We use it hands-on. And once we give it our stamp of approval that we will use this ourselves, then we put it out to market and let people decide if that's right for them.
What a great job perk that is.
Definitely.
What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in?
So one is, do they get it? Do they get what we're asking them to do? Do they want to do what we're asking them to do? And then do they have the ability? And if they have those 3 things, if they get it, they want it, and they have the ability to execute, then that's when you place your bet. Because there's plenty of talented people, but maybe there's a fit issue, or any other thing. Maybe pay is off, what we think it's worth and what they think they're worth. Maybe there's a disconnect there. So that's where the want it comes in, because you might want to be CEO, but you might not want to be CEO for that particular package. And then all of a sudden that's not a good fit anymore. So that's really important.
Now, do you get involved in a lot of interviewing, particularly outside of your direct reports?
Yes, I do.
And how do you go about interviewing and hiring?
So I want to understand what's important to them. What is their personality type? What are their core strengths and values? And how would they fit in the seat that we're interviewing for, and how do they fit in the organization.
And do you typically interview everybody in the organization that's coming in? You're kind of still small enough where you could do that, or do you only get involved in maybe one level below your, executive suite or your direct hires?
As we continue to grow, there is becoming more and more separation. I would say that the the first year, I think I was either the first, second, or third interview of every single hire, and now we have different levels I get involved in, and other levels we have a team that takes care of that.
So now, let's say there's a direct report of yours, and he or she is hiring someone that they really want to make sure that you sign off on, but you just have maybe 5 or 10 minutes. What would you zero in on? What would be the 2 or 3 key things? Provided that their qualifications have been vetted, and there's obviously a couple of rounds that have gone in before you in terms of the interview process.
Yeah. So first thing I would ask is describe to me the position you're interviewing for.
Make sure they have an understanding of it.
Yeah, make sure that we're on the same page, because a lot of times it's just miscommunication or misrepresentation in some ways. And then the other thing I would ask is what excites them, just in general, to understand what kind of person they are. Are they excited about risk? Are they excited about stability? Are they excited about products or systems or whatever it is? But I want to know what gets them going. And then I would also ask what's important to them. In other words, what do they think about in their spare time?
Well, Buzz, we've just about run out of time, and really appreciate how generous you've been with it and the story behind your career and obviously that success of Zpacks. One of the things that many of our audience, wants to come and hear from the CEOs is, what kind of career and life advice would you give them?
Yeah, so first I would say do it for the right reasons, chase it for the right reasons. And what I mean by that is in the first part of my career, I was very successful, but I didn't enjoy it. I was always the kind of person, and probably why I was successful was once I get fill in the blank, I'll be happy, or this will be better. And so I went from the lowest level position making minimum wage all the way up to the highest level position making a lot more than minimum wage. And the only consistent thread was that I wasn't ever happy in the present, and I was always looking for what was next. And once I realized that, I just simply walked away. In the second part of my career, I was really, I was an entrepreneur, and I thought that that's maybe where I wanted to go. But what I found is that I was making others their dreams come true. I still wasn't fulfilling my own dreams. So I really had to sit down and give this idea some thought of what is happiness? What does that really mean to me? Yeah. So then I made a life plan for myself. I visualized what that life looked like, and then I made it happen. So when I looked at it and I said, okay, am I better at making a company or growing an established company? I said, I've done both, and I realize now that I'm better at growing an established company.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I liked running companies, so I definitely wanted to get into that top spot. But in that top spot of an organization that was already established, and I knew that I really liked the outdoors. So on those 3 criteria, I could really narrow it down. So I identified a half dozen companies that fit those 3 criteria. I challenged the criteria to make sure that was in fact actually going to make me happy. And then once I did that, I put together a value proposition. I reached out to them, and one company, Zpacks, decided that what I could offer was of value to them, and I already knew going into it that what they could offer was of value to me.
Right.
And that's where it worked. And I think it's really important to understand the difference between being a CEO and an entrepreneur. And the difference is really akin to adopting a child versus having your own.
Yeah, so true.
They're definitely different, and they're both wonderful in their own ways, but you have to decide which one is right for you and then go that route.
Well, Buzz Bradley, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office. We've really enjoyed the conversation today, and best of luck in continuing to grow Zpacks.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.